February 2nd, 2008. It was a normal Saturday morning in a suburban shopping center just outside of Chicago. Shoppers moved between stores, employees opened their businesses for the day, and everything seemed completely routine. But inside a clothing store in Tinley Park, Illinois, a crime was unfolding that would shock the entire country. Within just a few minutes, 5 women would lose their lives and 1 would barely survive. More than a decade later, the person responsible has still never been identified. This is the story of the Lane Bryant murders. Tinley Park sits about 30 miles south of Chicago. It's known as a quiet suburban community filled with peaceful neighborhoods, schools, and local shopping plazas. Violent crime in the area was relatively uncommon. One of its busiest retail areas was Brookside Marketplace, a typical strip mall with restaurants and popular clothing stores. Among them was a Lane Bryant, part of a national chain specializing in plus-size women's fashion. On the morning of February 2nd, the store opened just like any other Saturday. Employees prepared the displays, customers started to arrive, and nothing seemed out of place. But just after 10:30 a.m., everything changed. A man walked into the store. Witnesses would later describe him as a tall black male wearing dark clothing, possibly a long coat or jacket. At first, he just appeared like any other customer browsing around. But within moments, the situation shifted dramatically. The man pulled out a handgun and began directing the employees toward the back of the store. What might have initially seemed like a robbery was quickly becoming something far more serious. One by one, employees and customers were forced into a rear stockroom. By this point, 6 women were inside that room. The stockroom was a small, cramped space, normally used just for storing clothing and inventory. Inside that room, the women were restrained with duct tape. Investigators later said that the suspect appeared calm and controlled throughout the entire incident. The situation had escalated far beyond a simple robbery within minutes. Multiple gunshots were fired inside the stockroom. 5 of the women lost their lives. 1 woman survived, despite suffering a critical injury. After taking cash from the store, the suspect fled the building. The entire horrific event likely lasted only a short amount of time. People in nearby stores had no idea what had just happened right next door. Around 11 o'clock a.m., a 911 call was placed. It came from the surviving victim. She managed to tell dispatchers that people inside the store had been shot. When police arrived at the Lane Bryant, they discovered a devastating scene in the back stockroom. Emergency crews rushed the surviving victim to the hospital, where doctors worked tirelessly to save her life. Meanwhile, investigators on the scene quickly realized they were dealing with a major homicide case. 5 women were killed. During the attack, they included both employees and customers who had simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time. Gwendolyn Pogue, who went by Gwen, was 47 and the store manager. Friends described her as a caring person who was dedicated to her work. Mary Kwaja, known as Molly, was 46 and an employee working that shift. Paula Degnan, who was 37, was also an employee at the store. 2 customers were also among the victims. Susie Zivkovic, age 44, had come to shop that morning, and Beverly Washington, just 30 years old, was another customer visiting the store. Each woman had a family, friends, and a life that was suddenly and brutally taken away during what should have been a normal day. The Tinley Park Police Department immediately launched a massive investigation. They were soon joined by the FBI and the Illinois State Police. The store was closed off as a crime scene with investigators carefully processing every square inch. But one major problem quickly became clear. The store's security cameras were not working that day. This meant there was no video footage of the suspect entering or leaving the store. Without that crucial footage, detectives had to rely heavily on physical evidence and witness descriptions. investigators did collect several important pieces of evidence from the crime scene. One of the most significant was the duct tape that was used to bind the victims. Forensic experts were able to recover DNA evidence from that tape. The DNA profile was then entered into CODIS, the national DNA database used by law enforcement across the country. But the profile didn't match anyone already in the system. The surviving victim was also able to provide investigators with a description of the suspect. However, because she had been forced to keep her head down for much of the incident, her view of the man had been limited. Witnesses in the shopping center also reported seeing a man leaving the area around that time, but their descriptions varied. None of these leads ever resulted in a confirmed suspect. Investigators believe the crime likely began as a robbery. The suspect took approximately $2,000 from the store before he left, but the extreme level of violence raised a lot of questions. In most robberies, once the money is taken, the suspect leaves as quickly as possible. But in this case, the suspect took the time to gather the victims together and restrain them. Some investigators believe the suspect may have wanted to eliminate any potential witnesses. Others have wondered if the suspect had some prior knowledge of the store's layout or procedures, but no clear evidence has ever been found to confirm any of those theories. In the weeks and months that followed the crime, authorities received thousands of tips. Police followed up on countless possible suspects. Several people were questioned, but none could be definitively connected to the evidence from the scene. Investigators also looked at similar crimes in other states to see if the suspect might be linked to other robberies or attacks, but no clear pattern was ever discovered. Despite the massive scale of the investigation, the case eventually slowed as the leads ran out. Today, the Lane Bryant murders remain unsolved. The DNA evidence collected from the crime scene is still preserved, waiting. Investigators hold out hope that future advances in forensic technology could one day help identify the person responsible. Authorities continue to review tips and occasionally re-examine the case from new angles. For the families of the victims, the lack of answers has been incredibly difficult to live with. 5 women lost their lives during an ordinary Saturday morning, and more than 15 years later, the mystery of who did this remains. A normal day, a routine shopping trip, a crime that lasted only minutes but left a lasting scar on an entire community. The Lane Bryant murders remain one of the most puzzling and tragic unsolved cases in Illinois history. And somewhere, someone may still hold the information needed to finally solve it. Thank you for watching. If you found this story compelling, please consider subscribing for more deep dives into cases like this one.